Hello, everyone. Tonight, we're going to slip into the shadows of a night that never gave its answers easily. Imagine this: the bridge glistens under sheets of rain, the lamps above barely holding back the darkness. Two siblings walk side by side, their coats heavy with water, their steps echoing in sync with the storm. It's an ordinary night that is about to become the kind of story whispered at midnight, the kind that families never stop retelling: a disappearance, a sibling mystery, and an unresolved case that will test everything we think we know about truth. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe if you really like what I'm doing here. I'll be right here every week, bringing you stories that twist the ordinary into something unforgettable. And tell me in the comments where you're listening, from what city, what neighborhood. You never know, someone else might be listening just down the street. Now turn off the lights, lie back on your comfy cushions, and let's get moving tonight. The bridge is old, built during the French colonial period in Vietnam in the early 1900s. That's our historical fact for tonight. Engineers of that era often underestimated the violent force of tropical floods, leaving structures vulnerable. Generations of villagers have walked across its iron ribs and cracked pavement, and they tell stories of the bridge like it's a living creature, groaning, sighing, humming late at night. On this evening, the storm hammers down so relentlessly that the sound of raindrops hitting the rusted railings feels like 1,000 tiny drum beats. Lon, the older sister, walks with an umbrella tilted against the wind. Her younger brother, Min, trails beside her, one hand gripping the slick railing for balance. They've just left their aunt's house across town, too stubborn to wait for the weather to ease. The bridge is long, and halfway across, it seems the world beyond has vanished. No other footsteps, no lights ahead, only the storm and them. Don't fall behind, Lon calls, her voice lifted by the wind. Min squints through the curtain of rain. He hates storms, always has, but following her has always been natural. She is his compass, his protector, the sister who makes the darkness less frightening. But tonight, even her voice is swallowed by the storm. A strange sound cuts across the rain, a sharp metallic clang, as though something heavy struck the railing. Min jerks his head to the side. The lamps flicker shadows, bending, stretching. He sees her silhouette umbrella tugged by the wind. She takes one step toward the middle of the bridge, and then gone. No scream, no splash, just the hollow space where she stood. Min freezes his heartbeat, drowning out the storm. He stumbles forward, his hands clawing at the railing. Nothing, only the black water churning far below. This is the moment that begins our story: the vanishing of Lan, a young woman lost to the storm, and Min, the brother, left behind. Investigators and detectives are still debating whether her disappearance was pure accident, something darker, or something no rational theory can fully explain. Min runs the length of the bridge, calling her name. Lan Lan. His voice cracks raw and thin against the night. He searches the ground for her umbrella, her shoe, any sign that she had simply dropped something and crouched to retrieve it. But there is nothing, only rain splattering in cold bursts on the pavement. A motorbike approaches in the distance, its headlight piercing the darkness. Min waves, frantically shouting, and the rider skids to a stop. It's an older man with a raincoat flapping like wings. Min's words tumble out: his sister, the storm, the silence. The man dismounts, peers over the railing, shakes his head. The river is a boiling black snake, swollen by the storm. The man pulls out his phone, dials the local police. Min stands trembling, every nerve screaming that this isn't real, that she'll step out of the shadows laughing at his panic. but the rain keeps falling relentless, and she doesn't appear. Within minutes, flashing red and blue lights bounce off the wet iron beams of the bridge. Officers spill out of a van, their raincoats gleaming. They fan out shining flashlights into the river, calling orders above the storm. Min clings to the railing, soaked to the bone, his eyes wild. One officer kneels, shines his light on the ground, and frowns. No skid marks, no torn fabric, no sign of a struggle, he says. Another shakes his head. If she went over there, should have been a splash, but Min insists. He saw her. One moment she was there, the next she wasn't. His voice shakes, but his conviction is steady. Something happened on that bridge that he cannot explain. Here's our unusual detail. The bridge itself has a history of swallowing things. Locals say bicycles, even a cart, have slipped between its uneven planks over the decades. Objects vanish into the river, never recovered. Some villagers believe the river collects what the living refuse to guard. Others whisper that the bridge hungers. Is it superstition or something darker? Investigators are still debating whether the structure itself contributed to her disappearance or if a human hand played a role. As the police sweep the bridge, Min remembers his sister's last words. Don't fall behind. They echo in his skull, distorted by fear, as though she were warning him of something else entirely. The storm finally begins to weaken thunder, rolling away toward the mountains. The officers set up floodlights along the bridge, their harsh beams turning raindrops into falling diamonds. A diver is summoned, but the river is too swollen, too violent for anyone to safely search that night. They promise Min they will return at dawn. He doesn't sleep. He stands at the edge of the bridge long after the police leave, watching the water churn beneath him. Somewhere down there, he believes his sister is waiting. By morning, the storm has stripped the land bare. Mudslides streak the hillsides, branches litter the roads, but the river has calmed, carrying its secrets quietly downstream. The police bring boats, ropes, sonar equipment, an unusual luxury for a rural investigation borrowed from a nearby provincial unit. They drag the water, sweep the banks, question fishermen. Nothing, no body, no umbrella, no fragments of clothing. It's as if Lon never existed on that bridge at all. Min is brought to the station for a statement. He describes the night in meticulous detail, the rain, the clang of metal, her sudden absence. But under the fluorescent buzz of the interrogation room, his words feel fragile, unbelievable, even to his own ears. An officer scribbles notes. Another watches his face closely. Are you sure you didn't argue with her? One asks. No one pushed. Min shakes his head, horrified. They were laughing earlier in the evening, teasing each other about the storm. There was no argument, no reason. And yet the silence of evidence presses against him like a weight. Investigators and detectives are still debating whether his account was clouded by shock, by fear, or by something more deliberate. Let's pause just for a breath. Imagine yourself there, standing on that bridge after the storm, the iron beams dripping the planks sleek under your shoes, the river below whispering as though it knows your name. Would you trust your eyes? Would you trust your memory? Or would you start to wonder if the bridge itself had played a trick on you? That's where Min stands at the end of part one, drenched alone and staring into a mystery that has only just begun. The storm might have passed, but the echoes of that night linger like a bruise no one can touch. Min remembers one thing most clearly, not the rain, not the blinding lights of police torches, not even the moment he saw the space where his sister should have been. What burns into his mind is the sound, sharp and metallic, like a bell struck by accident, a sound that cut across the thunder and ran with a clarity that didn't belong. Investigators and detectives are still debating whether that clang was the noise of her umbrella, catching the rail, a loose piece of metal shaking loose, or something far more sinister, a signal of her fall. Min swears it was the instant before she disappeared, the punctuation mark at the end of her existence on the bridge. He tells the police this. They scribble it down, but exchange glances as if uncertain. One officer notes bridges creak and groan, especially old ones. It could have been anything. Another presses. Are you sure you didn't imagine it after she was gone? But Min knows what he heard. It was too precise, too deliberate. Rain still pools across the cracked concrete of the bridge the following morning, shimmering under the pale sunlight. Officers return. With measuring tape, chalk, and cameras, they comb every inch of the span, looking for evidence. Shoe prints dragged fabric, broken railings. Min follows them, clutching his damp jacket, shivering though the day is warm. A detective crouches near the spot Min pointed out. He raps his knuckles against the railing. The sound it makes is a hollow thud, nothing like the sharp clang Min remembers. He shakes his head, unconvinced. Min's stomach knots. It was louder than that, like someone hit it, like metal against metal. The detective writes it down, his expression unreadable. Here's tonight's unusual detail during the Ming Dynasty. Chinese scholars recorded strange phenomena called vanishing sounds on bridges during storms, clangs, cries, and bells heard by some, but not by others, often preceding accidents. Whether it was acoustic superstition or something we still can't explain, the historical record is clear. Bridges hold onto echoes longer than we expect. That fact only makes Min's memory sharper. He isn't imagining things. The sound was real and it means something. But what? Now midnight. The search continues. Divers enter the calmer river, now their heads bobbing like dark buoys. Min watches them slip beneath the surface, disappearing into the murky green depths. Ropes coil across the banks. Officers scan upstream and downstream, marking potential catch points where a body might snag. Hours pass. Nothing. By evening, a senior officer calls Min aside. His tone is practiced professional, but not unkind. Listen, the current is strong. If she went in, she could be far downstream. We may not find anything for days or longer. Min's throat tightens. He refuses to believe his sister could simply vanish without trace. There has to be something. She didn't just vanish. The officer rests a hand on his shoulder. Sometimes that's what rivers do. It's a statement meant to comfort, but it feels like a curse. Mo nor hor, Back at home, Min lies awake, replaying the night over and over. His parents move like shadows through the house, grief already staining the air. The family shrine holds a new candle, its flame bending as if straining to reach someone who isn't there. Min closes his eyes and hears it again, the clang, the way the sound cut through everything. And then he swears something else, a softer note like water slapped hard, a sound too faint to swear by, but one he can't let go of. Did he hear her body hit the water after all, or is his memory rewriting itself, trying to explain the impossible? Investigators and detectives are still debating whether witnesses in trauma mishear and misremember events. Some say the brain fills in gaps with imagined details. Others argue those first impressions, however strange, are the truest. Min is caught in between, haunted by a sound that refuses to leave. 2 days later, the search team calls off the daily dives. Rain threatens again, and the river swells with runoff. The case begins to cool, at least officially, but Min is not done. One evening, he returns to the bridge alone. The lamps flicker weakly, casting pools of yellow light across the span. He walks to the spot where she disappeared. The railing is cold, wet with mist. He leans over, listening to the river. It gurgles restless, as if mocking him. He grips the iron bar, then slams a stone against it. The clang rings out sharp and hollow, bouncing across the water. His heart leaps. That's the sound. That's what he heard. So maybe she struck the railing as she fell. Maybe her umbrella did. Or he shudders. Maybe someone else made that sound. Someone hidden in the storm. He turns, scanning the shadows of the bridge. But there's only silence now. Silence and the echo of the clang still ringing in his ears. Here's a piece of real history for you. During World War II, bridges across Asia were often used by both armies and civilians, becoming sites of sabotage, ambush, and tragedy. Soldiers reported phantom sounds, chains rattling boots, marching long after battles ended. Acoustic experts now suggest metal beams amplify and distort noises, creating ghostly echoes. So the sound Min remembers might not have been supernatural. It could be science, old metal flexing under rain and stress. And yet, what chills him isn't the explanation, it's the timing. The clang came exactly when his sister vanished. Coincidence or connection? Investigators are still debating whether we should ever trust coincidences in missing person cases. The next morning, Min describes his experiment to the police. They nod politely but skeptically. One mutters, "So maybe she slipped, hit the railing, fell." That explains it. But Min shakes his head. She didn't scream. Don't you understand? She didn't scream. The room falls quiet. It's true, no one reported hearing a scream that night. Not the motorbike rider, not the police, not even Min himself. She vanished silently, except for the clang. That detail unsettles even the officers. People scream when they fall. It's instinctive. But Lan did not, so what happened on that bridge? Mom, at the family home, whispers begin. Relatives murmur theories in low voices. Perhaps she slipped, quickly struck her head unconscious before she hit the water. Perhaps someone was waiting for her on the bridge, muffling her voice. Perhaps she never fell at all, but disappeared into the night another way. Min listened silent, burning with frustration. They don't understand. He saw her vanish. The clang was her signature, the last mark of her presence. And if no one else believes him, he will carry it like a secret truth. At night, the clang follows him into sleep. Sometimes it wakes him sharp as thunder. Sometimes it softens, blending into dreams of his sister's voice, calling from below the bridge. He doesn't tell anyone about those dreams. Not yet. By the end of part two, we're left with a sound metallic final, unexplained, a sound that marks the border between two worlds, the world where Lan still walked beside her brother, and the world where she was gone. The clang is the mystery's heartbeat, a single note that investigators can't explain away, no matter how hard they try. For Min, it's more than memory. It's a promise, a clue, maybe even a curse. And so the story deepens. The rain has stopped, but the echoes of the bridge are only growing louder. Morning arrives heavy with fog, the kind that makes everything look like it's been erased and redrawn in pale charcoal. The river glimmers dully under the low light, sluggish after days of rain, but still wide, still swallowing. The search begins before the village rooster even bothers to call. Officers, volunteers, fishermen all gather at the banks With ropes, poles, and nets, their rain boots sinking into the mud. Min is there too. He hasn't slept, but exhaustion is irrelevant. His eyes are sharp, frantic, darting between every ripple of the water, every shadow that moves. He has one singular mission: to find his sister, or at least find something of her. The bridge looms above them, silent now. It doesn't creak, doesn't groan, as though even it is holding its breath. The villagers treat this like more than a search. To them, it's ritual. They light incense sticks, their smoke curling skyward, offering to the river spirit. Someone tosses a handful of rice into the current, whispering prayers that the lost soul will return. That's our unusual detail tonight. In Vietnamese folklore, rivers are believed to carry spirits downstream unless appeased with food or fire. For centuries, families have practiced these rites. When someone drowns, believing it gives the spirit a path back home, Min watches this ritual with unease. He doesn't want his sister's spirit back. He wants her body, her voice, her laughter, flesh and breath, not ashes and incense. Mao Ma's. The police organize the volunteers into lines. They sweep the banks, checking the underbrush, dragging the reeds with the poles. Boats launch into the middle of the river, their engines churning froth as nets are lowered into the dark water. Every pull of the net feels like a heartbeat. They haul it up, dripping weeds and mudfish flopping violently, then sighs of disappointment. Nothing, again and again. By midday, the sun pushes through the fog, hot and merciless. Sweat clings to foreheads. The villagers pause to drink tea from thermoses, but Min cannot stop. He wades into the river himself, water soaking his jeans, pulling against his legs. His hands drag at the reeds, searching blindly. Officers try to call him back, but he ignores them. His desperation is stronger than their orders, and then he feels something. His fingers brush against fabric, smooth and unnatural among the river plants. His breath stops. He plunges both hands down, grabbing it, hauling upward. A gasp bursts from his throat as he pulls up a torn tarp coated in algae, stinking of rot. Not his sister, just debris. His body crumples into the riverbank hands, shaking. The officers lead him back, gentle but firm, muttering about safety. Min doesn't hear them. The tarp might as well have been a body for the way it felt in his hands, heavy, lifeless. Here's a historical fact tucked into the story during the 1945 famine in Vietnam, when rivers carried away thousands who collapsed at their banks. Local officials often mistook floating tarps, mats, or sacks for corpses. Searchers grew used to false alarms, the same crushing rise and fall of hope. Min has unknowingly stepped into that same cruel cycle. Days pass and the search stretches into a routine. Boats fan out each morning, dragging, probing. Volunteers walk the muddy banks with sticks poking at anything suspicious. Word spreads to neighboring villages and more people come to help. At night, the river is lit by lanterns glowing like a procession for the dead. But no lan, no umbrella, no shoes, nothing. Suspicion begins to seep in with the silence. Quietly at first, in side glances and whispered conversations, neighbors ask one another, was she really on the bridge? Did Min tell the truth? Why is there no trace at all? Investigators and detectives are still debating whether missing persons cases become clouded most by silence or by noise. Silence leaves space for imagination. Noise, rumors, speculation fills in the gaps with poison. Min is about to learn how quickly a search can turn into suspicion. Amardarihi, amor, honor. One evening, as lanterns flicker on the water, Min overhears two villagers talking. I heard she wanted to leave the village. Maybe she ran away in the middle of a storm, leaving her brother alone. The first shrugs. Stranger things have happened. Min steps forward, his voice sharp. She didn't run away. She wouldn't leave me. The men fall silent, eyes shifting. No one argues, but their silence says enough. Doubt has taken root. The police don't help. They file daily reports, but without evidence, their notes grow thin. No sign of foul play. One entry reads, possibility of accidental drowning. Another mentions discrepancies in witness account. Min feels the weight of those words pressing on his chest. They are building a case, but not against the river, against him. He tries to explain again about the sound, the clang, the absence of a scream. But the more he repeats it, the less credible it sounds, even to himself. Was it really that loud? Was there really no scream? Could the storm have swallowed it? The line between memory and imagination blurs, but his certainty refuses to break. He knows what he heard. He knows she vanished. By the end of the first week, the official search winds down. The police say resources are limited. The river is too wide, the current's too strong. If her body is caught, it may not surface for weeks. They promise to call the family if anything is found downstream. It is a polite dismissal. For men, it feels like betrayal. How can they stop? How can they sleep while she is still out there? So he begins his own search. He borrows a small boat from a fisherman, its paint peeling, its oars creaking. Every dawn he rows alone, drifting along the riverbanks, scanning for fabric, for pale skin, for any sign. He talks to the water under his breath, half prayer, half accusation. Give her back to me. One morning he spots something tangled in the reeds, a flash of red. His heart pounds as he rows closer, imagining her scarf, the one she wore that night. But when he pulls it free, it's only a scrap of children's kite, faded and torn. The river seems to mock him. Still he keeps rowing. Sjaderer has Here's another unusual detail. Vietnamese folklore describes a ghost light that appears on rivers where someone has drowned blue flames hovering just above the water. Some say it's phosphorus gas from decay. Others believe it's the soul restless and searching. Min begins to see flickers on the water at night. Are they real or just exhaustion, painting ghosts onto his eyes? He doesn't tell anyone, not yet. After 2 weeks, the villagers grow restless. Searches taper off. Life resumes, fields must be tended, markets reopened, but for Min, the bridge remains frozen in time. He visits it nightly, pacing the boards, replaying every step, every sound. Sometimes he whispers to her, convinced the iron beams still carry her voice. The desperate search has yielded nothing, no answers, no closure, only growing suspicion, whispered doubts, and a brother who cannot let go. The clang still echoes in his memory, sharp and merciless, and with each day of silence, it feels less like a clue and more like a curse. By the end of part 3, the search for Lan has shifted from hope to dread. What was once a village's united effort is dissolving into suspicion and fear, and for Min, desperation is curdling into obsession. The bridge waits silently. The river whispers, and the mystery deepens. The river has returned to its usual pace, smooth and deceptive, as if nothing ever happened, but the village is still caught in the undertow of Lan's disappearance. A week has passed since the storm swallowed her. The police have fewer boats on the water now, fewer flashlights probing the reeds. What they do have are notebooks, pens, and questions. This is the stage where silence begins to fracture into stories, where testimony becomes the only currency left to trade. and soon those stories begin to clash.
Huzzah. At the police station, Min is asked to repeat his account once again. He sits under the humming fluorescent light, his clothes clinging with dampness from the misty morning. The officer across from him flips through pages of notes, adjusting his glasses. You say she walked slightly ahead of you. Yes, yes. And you heard a metallic sound. Yes, but no scream, no cry for help. No. The officer leans back, pen tapping the table. Some of the neighbors suggest they saw the two of you arguing earlier that day. Can you confirm? Min frowns, caught off guard. We weren't arguing. We were teasing, laughing. Who said that? The officer shrugs. Different people, different impressions. That's the thing about memory. It's a tricky thing. Investigators and detectives are still debating whether conflicting witness accounts reveal truth or simply reflect the chaos of human perception.
When an event is dramatic, our minds sharpen some details and blur others like a photograph burned at the edges. But in a case like this, every blurred edge is treated like a hidden motive. Min insists again they did not argue, but the rumor grows legs. A fruit vendor swears she heard raised voices when the siblings left their aunt's house. A motorbike rider says Min looked unusually calm when he flagged him down. Another villager claims to have seen only Min on the bridge that night, no sister at all. Conflicting testimonies pile up like driftwood against the pillars of the bridge. The more they gather, the less the original story can be seen beneath them. Here's an unusual detail for you. In 18th century France during the infamous Beast of Gévaudan. Killing's villagers gave dozens of contradictory descriptions of the monster wolf bear dog, even demon. The confusion wasn't deceit, it was fear reshaping memory. Historians still debate whether those conflicting testimonies were deliberate lies or the honest chaos of terrified minds. Lan's case feels the same. Was it fear of the storm, distrust of men, or simply the human instinct to dramatize? Either way, the testimonies grow murkier with each telling. Mon chmai abwar mer mershans muri. At home, Min's parents begin to question him too. Not outright, but with small, piercing remarks. His mother asks, "Did she seem sad lately? Anything she told you that we didn't know?" His father says nothing, but his silence is heavy, accusatory. Min feels the ground shifting beneath him. He has lost his sister, and now he feels he's losing the trust of everyone else. Late one night, Min overhears his aunt speaking with neighbors on the porch. Maybe she wanted to disappear. The storm gave her a chance. You know some women do that.
The neighbor whispers back. But the boy, he insists she fell. If she ran away, why would he make up the story? Unless the aunt says softly he had something to hide. The words strike Min like a slap. He stumbles back from the doorway, his chest pounding. It doesn't matter that he loved his sister more than anything. It doesn't matter that he was there, that he saw her vanish. To them, absence is guilt, silence is guilt, confusion is guilt. The police begin asking more pointed questions. Did he push her even by accident? Did they fight over money? Did she confide in him something that made her vulnerable? The officer's eyes linger on him longer now, as though waiting for him to crack. Min's answer never changes. No, 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 she slipped, or something happened, but it wasn't him. And yet his own memory torments him. He replays it in bed, her silhouette, the clang, the emptiness.
Did he blink? Did he look away for a fraction of a second? Could he have missed her scream? Memory is both his shield and his trap. Here's a historical fact in the case of the Salem witch trials. Testimonies from children conflicting, inconsistent, often fantastical, were still accepted as truth. Entire lives were destroyed because people wanted certainty, even if it was contradictory certainty. The same hunger for closure haunts Lan's disappearance. People would rather have an explanation, even a false one, than endure silence. And in this case, the easiest explanation is Min. Suspicion spreads quietly through the village. Children whisper when he passes. An old woman pulls her granddaughter closer, muttering that he carries bad luck. Some stop offering help. Others avoid his gaze entirely. The bridge becomes more than a site of tragedy, it becomes a symbol of his guilt. Min feels the walls closing in. If he doesn't find anything to prove her fall, he will lose not only his sister, but himself. One evening, he confronts the motorbike rider who was first on the scene. You saw me. You know I called you because she was gone. The rider shifts uneasily. Yes, but the rain, the storm. Maybe you were confused. Confused, Min's voice rises. I watched her disappear. The rider avoids his eyes. I only saw you. I didn't see her. The words echo like the clang on the bridge. I only saw you. That night, Min returns to the bridge, anger boiling beneath his skin. He walks the planks, stomping each one, daring them to creak, to speak, to tell the truth. He leans over the railing and shouts into the dark river, You took her, not me. You took her. His voice bounces back, warped as though the bridge itself mocks him.
But in that echo, he hears something else, a faint laugh, or maybe just the wind slipping through the beams. He steps back, chilled. Is his mind breaking, or is the bridge whispering its own testimony?
Investigators and detectives are still debating whether witnesses like Min, traumatized, isolated, doubted, can remain reliable. Some say trauma makes details sharper. Others argue it distorts reality beyond recognition. In cases where no evidence exists, the testimony itself becomes the battlefield, and right now, Min is losing. By the end of part 4, the desperate search has collapsed into a courtroom without walls. Every villager is both jury and judge, and every testimony contradicts the next. Min clings to his truth, but the louder he insists, the less anyone seems to believe. The clang remains that sharp metallic note, but it is drowned out by the rising chorus of suspicion.
And in the middle of it all is a boy who wanted only to save his sister, now fighting to save himself. Rumors are like shadows, they stretch longer in the dark, and the darker the night, the more grotesque their shapes become. After Land's disappearance, the storm passes, but in the quiet aftermath, the village fills with whispers. When the police lanterns stop flashing on the riverbanks and the muddy boots are hung to dry, people start talking, and what they say carries a different kind of weight. It begins with children. They gather at the market, wide eyed, daring one another to cross the bridge at night. One boy swears he saw a woman in white standing on the rail, dripping wet hair, covering her face. Another insists he heard humming a lullaby coming from the center of the bridge, though the planks were empty. The adults scold them, but even the adults lean closer when they speak. Sa'asa. One unusual detail, bridges in Vietnamese folklore are often considered liminal places, gateways where spirits linger. Folklorists note that in many Southeast Asian cultures, bridges symbolize thresholds neither land nor water, a place where the living and the dead blur. It is said that ghosts appear there, especially those who died suddenly. So when land vanished without a body, the bridge itself became the suspect. People began avoiding it at night, taking the long route through the village fields. Motorbikes idled at the base of the span riders, lighting incense before crossing. Mothers warned daughters not to linger on its planks. The bridge had become haunted. But the stories grow stranger. A fisherman claims his nets tore near the pillar where she vanished. Like something pulled them down, he says, showing the frayed cords. A woman swears she saw wet footprints leading off the bridge, but stopping abruptly, as if the walker had simply dissolved into mist. The most chilling comes from an old man who lives upriver. He tells the tea shop that bridge wasn't safe. The spirits there always demand balance. A life for a life. He says he remembers another disappearance decades ago when a traveling merchant vanished during a storm. The case was never solved. Investigators and detectives are still debating whether such folklore reflects forgotten truths or is simply the community's way of coping with fear. Min hears these rumors too, and each one lands on him like a stone. At first, he rejects them, insists that people are just weaving tales, but late at night, when he lies awake listening to the river's murmur, he remembers the sound, the clang, and he wonders, could there have been someone else on the bridge? Could his sister's voice still be echoing, trapped in that liminal space? His guilt finds fuel in the supernatural. If she calls for him, why couldn't he save her? If her ghost lingers, is it because she waits for him to do something he hasn't yet done? The police, pragmatic and tired, dismiss the stories. They remind the villagers that rumors don't solve cases, evidence does. But when evidence is missing, rumors become the new evidence, however fragile, and fragile things spread fast. Here's a historical fact. In London, 1888, during the Jack the Ripper killings, false rumors about a mysterious leather apron suspect circulated so widely that police wasted days chasing a man who turned out to be innocent. The gossip spread faster than the investigation. In Land's case, the same pattern repeats.
Instead of searching the river, people search their imaginations. Some say Lan was cursed because she mocked an old shrine near the riverbank. Others whisper that she fell in love with someone forbidden, and the bridge was her secret meeting place. A few go further, claiming Min himself bargained with something in the water and paid with his sister's life. The bridge becomes less a structure of wood and nails and more a canvas for fear. One evening, Min overhears two young women talking by the food stall. They say if you walk the bridge at midnight and call her name, she answers back. Have you tried it? No, but my cousin swears she heard it, a voice soft like it came from beneath the planks. Min's hands tremble. He wants to shout at them, tell them to stop using his sister's name as a ghost story. But he swallows the anger because deep inside part of him wants to try it too. That night, against his better judgment, he does. He waits until the village sleeps, then walks barefoot to the bridge. The boards groan under his weight, the river black beneath him. He stands in the center, closes his eyes, and whispers Lan. The name hangs in the air. Nothing answers, just the rush of water. He whispers again louder, Lan, and then maybe imagination, maybe madness he hears it, not an echo, not his own breath. A faint reply, Min. His knees buckle. He grips the railing, heart hammering. He leans forward, staring into the depths. The river reflects nothing but shifting shadows, yet he could swear the water is whispering. The next day, he tells no one, but the experience gnaws at him.
Was it real a hallucination, or had the rumors planted the voice in his mind? Investigators and detectives are still debating whether such experiences are genuine encounters with trauma or the brain's way of stitching fear and memory into illusions. Either way, Min feels marked by it. As weeks pass, the village grows divided. Some demand the police search again, saying the river hides her body. Others say to leave it lest they anger her spirit further. The bridge remains both a crime scene and a shrine. Offerings appear joss paper fruit candles. The smell of incense drifts across the water. Min walks past and sees his sister's favorite bracelet placed on the railing by someone he doesn't know. The gesture cuts deeper than suspicion ever could. It means she is gone in everyone's mind. Gone not by accident, but into myth.
The gossip finally reaches a breaking point when a group of teenagers dares each other to spend a night on the bridge. They bring snacks, cigarettes, a speaker blasting music. But sometime around midnight, the speaker cuts out. The group later swears they heard footsteps circling them, though no one was there. One girl faints, and when she wakes, she claims she saw a dripping figure at the edge, staring silently before vanishing. The story spreads like fire, and with it, Lan's disappearance is no longer a police matter. It is folklore. Men trapped between disbelief and desperate hope decide something dangerous. If the living cannot help him, maybe the dead can. He begins collecting fragments of old tales, asking elders about river spirits, reading about rituals to call wandering souls. He clings to anything that might bring him closer to her, whether it is evidence, memory, or myth.
But the deeper he looks, the more the line between rumor and truth begins to blur. And so the bridge no longer belongs to the authorities. It belongs to whispers, shadows, and fears. Every creak of its planks is a rumor. Every ripple in the water is a clue. And men desperate to clear his name and bring Lon back begins listening to them all. Morning mist clings to the bridge like cobwebs. The villagers pass by quickly, eyes lowered as though glancing too long at the planks might draw them into the same fate as Lan. For weeks now, everyone has spoken of her as either a ghost or a secret, never as a person who could still return. But on the sixth week, something small but undeniable interrupts the silence. It happens almost by accident. A municipal worker tasked with checking the bridge for storm damage crouches low near the eastern railing.
He runs his hand along the beams, the wood damp and splintered, and they're wedged in a thin crack where the planks meet the iron bolt. He notices something glinting. At first, he thinks it's trash, a gum wrapper, maybe foil from a candy. But when he pulls it free, his fingers close around a delicate object, a hairpin, not just any hairpin, a slender silver one bent slightly at the end, engraved with tiny flowers. The worker doesn't know much about the case, but he knows what everyone in the village knows. Lon always wore a silver hairpin. Her friends teased her for never leaving the house without it, no matter if she went to the market or to a family gathering. Now here it is, caught like a memory in the bridge itself. The discovery ignites the investigation anew. Police tape reappears. Flashlights and cameras return. For days, the bridge swarms with officials who crouch, scrape, and measure. The hairpin is placed into a clear evidence bag labeled photographed, cataloged. At last, a tangible piece of her. Awas gear one. Min is the first to confirm it. When shown the pin, his throat closes. That's hers. He whispers his hand, trembling above the plastic. His mother sobs into her shawl. His father's jaw tightens. For the first time, the family has something real to touch on, even if it is through sterile plastic. But the discovery raises new questions instead of answering the old. How did the hairpin get wedged there? Did she drop it as she fell? Did someone pull it from her head in a struggle? Was she leaning too far and it snagged? Investigators and detectives are still debating whether such overlooked objects are signs of foul play or simply the residue of accident. Forensic teams examine it, but the pin offers no fingerprints, no DNA beyond Land's own. It is both a clue and a dead end.
Yet its very existence shifts the balance. Where there were only rumors now, there is evidence something physical undeniable. The villagers seize on it in different ways. Some say the pin proves she fell, that the storm shook it loose. Others whisper that it's too neat, too perfectly placed, as if staged. Maybe someone put it there later. One woman mutters at the market, to make us think she fell. Unusual details breed unusual theories. Here's a historical fact: in 92, the Hinterkaifeck murders in Germany remained unsolved, partly because investigators overlooked small objects at the scene, a set of keys, an unfamiliar tool, dismissing them as irrelevant. Decades later, historians argue those overlooked items may have been the missing threads. The hairpin carries that same weight, ordinary but possibly everything. Min, for his part, is torn between relief and despair. Relief because the pin proves she was there, despair because it means she was close enough to the edge for it to be caught. He replays it in his head, her walking ahead, the clang, the emptiness. Could the hairpin have been the clang? Did it snap loose, fall, and make that sharp metallic note? The thought chills him. If that was the sound he heard, then he missed her final second by a heartbeat. He tries to hold on to the discovery like a rope, but the whispers in the village won't let him. Some suggest he planted it himself, desperate to shift suspicion. Too convenient, they murmur. Why would it appear after so many weeks? Others insist the spirit left it as a sign proof she lingers. Folklore curls around the object as tightly as the police bag seals it.
Sirha. The detectives, still skeptical, revisit Min's testimony with the hairpin in mind. One asks him, "Are you sure she was ahead of you, not beside you? Could she have turned to adjust her hair?" Min snaps back, "I don't know. It was raining. It was dark. I only know she was there and then she wasn't." His voice cracks, his composure fractures. The officer scribbles something in his notebook, unreadable. Min walks out feeling smaller than ever. The evidence meant to save him only deepens the suspicion. At night, the hairpin haunts him more than any rumor. He dreams of it glinting between the planks, whispering her name. In one dream, he reaches for it, but as he pulls it free, strands of Land's hair spill out tangled and wet. In another, the pin bends and twists into the shape of a key, but he doesn't know what it opens. He wakes sweating, clutching his pillow like a lifeline. Yeah, investigators and detectives are still debating whether physical evidence found late in a case is reliable. Was it there from the beginning, hidden by oversight, or placed afterward? Some argue that overlooked details often hold the most truth. Others warn that their very lateness contaminates the timeline. In this case, the hairpin is both salvation and poison. Meanwhile, the villagers begin leaving small offerings on the bridge near the crack, where it was found flowers, incense, even imitation jewelry. They treat the spot as if it were sacred, as if the bridge itself had swallowed her and returned a token of guilt. The bridge, once a path, now feels like a shrine. Men can hardly walk it without feeling the eyes of the entire village pressing into his back. And yet the pin opens a new path in his mind. If it was caught, then maybe other things are caught too. Maybe there are more overlooked details in the wood, the bolts, the muddy banks. He begins his own nightly inspections, crawling along the railing with a flashlight, peering into cracks, tapping at beams. People call him mad obsessed, but he doesn't care because he knows if one thing was overlooked, others could be too. And so the overlooked hairpin becomes not only a clue, but a catalyst. It proves she was real, proves she was there, and proves that silence can lie. But it also deepens the mystery because objects don't explain themselves. They only remind us of the moment just before everything went wrong. And sometimes that reminder is more unbearable than ignorance. Sleep has never been kind to men since that night, but after the discovery of the hairpin, it becomes unbearable. Days blur into nights, and nights dissolve into a strange theater where the line between dream and memory collapses. He lies down, hoping for rest, but instead he finds Lan waiting, not the living Lan he once knew, but the shadow of her half remembered, half created, stitched together by grief. The first dream is simple. He's back on the bridge. Rain pelts down, lightning cracks the sky. He walks behind her exactly as he did that night, but this time when the metallic clang echoes, he sees her turn. Her eyes meet his wide and pleading before she vanishes. He screams, and in the dream, his scream is swallowed whole by the water. He wakes drenched in sweat, clutching his bedsheet like a railing. The second dream comes a week later. He stands by the riverbank, the hairpin in his hand. The pin wriggles alive, bending into the shape of a fish. He throws it back into the water, but instead of sinking it, swims against the current.
He follows, and in the current, he sees her face, lips moving, but the sound is muffled, as if he's underwater with her. He jolts awake, heart hammering, and for a brief second before reality reclaims him, he swears he can still hear her voice. Dreams, psychologists say, often serve as the brain's attempt to process trauma, but villagers whisper a different explanation. If a loved one calls to you in your dreams, it means their spirit hasn't moved on. Investigators and detectives are still debating whether dreams are windows into grief or windows into something deeper, something waiting for resolution. Min begins writing them down, every detail, the clang, the pin, the words he can't hear. His notebook fills with frantic sketches, railing bolts, swirling water outlines of a woman's hair spreading like ink. He circles phrases like follow the current and listen closer. It becomes less like journaling and more like decoding, as if the dreams are messages and he is their unwilling interpreter. One unusual detail sticks with him in several dreams. He smells something impossible. Not the river's muddy odor, not rain, but sandalwood incense, the kind villagers burn for the dead. The scent lingers even after he wakes faint in his room, though no incense has been lit. He mentions it once to his aunt cautiously. She stiffens and mutters, if you smell incense with no fire, it means the dead are near. Her words make his skin crawl. The dreams grow stronger. One night he finds himself walking, not on the bridge, but beneath it, along a sandbar exposed by low tide, Lan stands in the shadows, her dress torn, her hair tangled in reeds. She doesn't speak, but she points upriver toward the mountains. He tries to follow, but the water rises around him, pulling at his legs until he can't move. He wakes, gasping, lungs burning, as if he'd swallowed the whole river. Historical fact: in ancient Mesopotamia, dream interpreters held official roles in courts tasked with advising rulers on whether visions signaled divine messages. Entire wars were delayed or advanced based on dreams. Whether we see them as prophecy or psychology, dreams have always carried weight beyond the sleeper. For men, they become unbearable evidence. He cannot dismiss them as fantasy when they feel more real than waking life. His parents notice the toll. His mother scolds him for the dark circles under his eyes, pressing bitter herbs into his hands. His father mutters that he's becoming obsessed, that he should let go. But how can he, when every night Lun seems closer, more desperate, as if trying to claw her way back through sleep? And worse, sometimes she doesn't appear at all. Instead, the dream shows only the river, silent, endless. Those are the dreams that terrify him most because they feel like forgetting. One night, his dream takes him further. He sees himself as a child running along the riverbank with Lon chasing behind. She laughs, trips, and he catches her hand. The memory is true, he remembers it clearly, but in the dream, it shifts. This time, when she trips, he lets go. She falls, but instead of grass, she lands in water, dragged instantly beneath. He screams, but no sound comes. When he wakes, guilt gnaws deeper. It's as though his own mind is accusing him of letting go, of failing her, not just that night, but all their lives. Villagers begin whispering that he looks haunted, and maybe he is.
He avoids their eyes, but he can't avoid the bridge. It dominates his dreams, his waking walks, even his meals. He hears it creak when he closes his eyes. One afternoon, exhausted, he dozes on the porch. He dreams again. This time, Lon is standing on the bridge in daylight, her hair dry, her dress neat as if nothing ever happened. She smiles softly and says, "It wasn't you." He wakes with tears on his face. The words echo through him like a bomb, but were they hers or his desperate invention? Investigators and detectives are still debating whether dreams that offer comfort are psychological coping mechanisms or something more profound. Survivors of tragedies often report visions where lost loved ones reassure them. Some call it the brain's mercy. Others call it visitation. Min doesn't know what to believe, only that it felt real.
The hairpin lies in his desk drawer, but in his dreams it always reappears, gleaming, beckoning. Sometimes it floats just out of reach. Sometimes it pierces the wood of the bridge like a nail. He wonders if it holds some key he hasn't yet unlocked. Late one night, he takes it from the drawer, holding it under the moonlight. He presses it to his ear, absurdly, as though it might whisper. And for the briefest instant, he thinks he hears rushing water. He drops it in fright. The cycle continues: sleepless nights, haunted dreams, whispered voices. His family grows more worried, but Min knows the dreams are pushing him somewhere. He remembers her pointing upriver, remembers the words he couldn't hear. Perhaps she's telling him to search not where she fell, but where the current carried her. And so, for the first time since the storm, the dreams don't only paralyze him, they point him forward.
Towards something hidden, something waiting in the river's path. Dreams may be fragile, fleeting things, but for Min, they are now the strongest evidence he has. The bridge has given what it can, a hairpin whispers and endless shadows, but the investigation cannot live forever in one place. Rivers do not stay still. They carry everything downstream: wood, debris, secrets, bodies. If Lon was taken by the current, she may not rest beneath the bridge at all. She may have traveled far, scattered among reeds, or lodged beneath unseen rocks. So the police widen their search. At first, it is practical. Officers bring in boats and drag lines, scanning the water further downstream. Divers slip into the murky depths, their bubbles rising like ghostly beads. They fan out in concentric circles, then move south toward the lowlands. Each hour that passes makes the task heavier, not just for their bodies, but for their hope. Nothing but absence itself is a kind of clue. If the river did not keep her, then perhaps someone else intervened. The piece of the investigation expands beyond water. Teams search the muddy banks, the fields, the fishermen's shacks. They check abandoned huts, listen for rumors in villages further downriver. Each step farther from the bridge stretches the case thinner, but it also opens new possibilities. One unusual detail emerges from a farmer tending his rice paddies 3 kilometers downstream. He reports finding torn fabric tangled in a bamboo grove near the water's edge. The fabric is dark blue, similar to the dress Lan was last seen wearing, but it is so muddied and shredded that even her parents cannot be certain. Still, the discovery reignites both dread and curiosity. Ah, investigators and detectives are still debating whether fragments like this should be treated as definitive evidence or dismissed as coincidence. Rivers are collectors of everything: clothing, trash, animal remains. To connect one scrap to one person is both tempting and dangerous. Zero. Meanwhile, the police call in specialists from the provincial capital. These are men with sonar equipment, waterproof drones, and computers that map the currents. They speak less like villagers and more like engineers. They explain how the river bends, how eddies trap objects, how storms can carry debris far beyond expected limits. One specialist remarks, "If she fell, she may not even be in this district anymore." The words land like a stone in Min's stomach. The idea of his sister being carried silently for miles, reduced to a drifting object, feels unbearable. But the science makes sense, cold and clinical. Grâce. Here's a historical fact. After the Titanic sank in 1912, bodies were found hundreds of kilometers from the wreck site, carried by currents and winds. Some were never recovered at all, lost to the vastness of the Atlantic. Investigators learned that water does not preserve stories, it disperses them. Land's case echoes that cruel lesson. But the widening search brings not just science, but superstition. In the downstream villages, people begin speaking of strange sightings: a pale figure glimpsed at twilight, a girl walking barefoot along the embankment, only to vanish when called. A fisherman swears he heard laughter echo from the reeds at dawn. For the police, these are distractions. For the villagers, they are warnings. Min joins the search, though officially he is told not to. He walks miles of shoreline, his shoes caked in mud eyes, scanning for any trace: footprints, cloth, jewelry. His notebook fills with sketches of currents, guesses about where the river might take her. He remembers her pointing upriver in the dream, and he wonders if she meant for him to go further beyond the scope of the official teams. He's The investigation also begins probing into her life beyond that night. Detectives interview her classmates, co-workers, old friends. They ask about secrets. Was she planning to leave? Did she have enemies? Was there someone she loved in secret? Each question feels like a needle stabbing Min's ribs. The answers are frustratingly mundane. She was kind, diligent, sometimes quiet, sometimes playful. No scandals, no enemies, but one friend mentioned something odd.
A week before the disappearance, Lan had asked her, "Do you ever feel like someone's following you?" The friend laughed it off at the time, thinking it was a joke. Now it feels like a missing piece. Yet investigators and detectives are still debating whether such offhand remarks are meaningful or simply the coincidences we attach to tragedy afterward. But to Min, it sounds like a whisper of truth. Maybe she wasn't alone that night. The widened investigation also brings conflict. The provincial authorities push for closure. Either she drowned and her body is unrecoverable, or she left by choice. The family resists, refusing to accept either option without proof. Tension builds between the villagers who prefer the ghost story and the officials who demand an official conclusion. For Min, neither side offers peace. He doesn't want myth, and he doesn't want a bureaucratic death certificate.
He wants his sister. Here's an unusual detail. While searching near a bend in the river, a boy discovers an old sandal stuck in the mud. It is too small, too delicate, and decades old, the straps crumbling at his touch. When shown to elders, they murmur, it may have belonged to the merchant who vanished years ago. Suddenly, the investigation stretches not just in space, but in time. The river has been swallowing people longer than anyone admitted. This deepens the dread. Maybe Lan is just the latest in a line of offerings. Saipa. Min begins mapping both disappearances on paper lawns and the merchants. He marks the bridge that currents the spot of the sandal. His lines crisscross like veins. He feels the case widening not just across kilometers, but across generations. He remembers something else from his dream, her pointing upriver. Perhaps she meant not downstream where the police search, but toward the mountains where the river begins. Toward the source, the idea consumes him. That night, he walks alone to the bridge again. The planks groan, the water shifts, but he is no longer afraid. He whispers her name, waits, and listens. The river answers only with silence, but silence too can be a direction. If she isn't here and she isn't downstream, then maybe the truth waits further up in places the investigation hasn't touched. The widening investigation has opened new ground, new debates, new fears. Yet for Min, it has done something else. It has set him on a path beyond police boundaries, beyond village whispers, following not maps or sonar, but the tug of dreams, toward wherever the current or his sister wants him to go. The river search spreads wide, the officers grow weary, and the family drifts between dread and denial.
Then a new threat emerges, thin, almost fragile, but impossible to ignore. Someone saw a man. It begins as a whisper, overheard in a tea shop near the bus stop. An old woman says she noticed a figure on the night Lon vanished. Not a villager, she insists. Taller, broader, his steps unfamiliar. She remembers the shape more than the details, a hat maybe, or long sleeves pulled too far down. At first, no one listens. People talk about strangers all the time, especially after markets or festivals. But another account surfaces. A young fisherman claims he passed a man on the dirt path leading to the bridge around the same time. The stranger carried something metallic, maybe a flashlight, maybe something else. His face was hidden by shadow. Suddenly, the investigation has a new presence, like a chessboard piece. sliding into play, the mysterious man. The police latch onto the detail. They canvass the area, asking villagers to describe him. Every story is different. Some say tall, some say average. Some claim he had a limp, others that he walked briskly. The inconsistency frustrates the officers, but Min notices a common thread. No one recognized him. In a village where every face is known, an unfamiliar one lingers like smoke. More. Here's a historical fact during the hunt for Jack the Ripper in 1888. Countless witnesses gave contradictory descriptions: beards, no beards, tall, short, foreign local. Investigators learned how fragile human memory can be under stress and rumor. Lon's case seems caught in the same fog: one figure, many shapes. Still, Min cannot ignore it. He replays that night in his head. They were alone on the bridge, weren't they? He swears no one else was there, but memory is tricky. Perhaps his focus on Lan blinded him to another silhouette. This thought terrifies him more than ghosts. If a man was there, then the river might not be the only suspect. Investigators and detectives are still debating whether this man existed at all or was conjured from collective anxiety. Some argue that people are filling gaps in their memory, inventing a stranger to explain the unexplainable. Others push that a stranger on a rainy night is exactly the kind of detail that matters. Min, restless, decides to find out himself. He visits each witness, sitting with them patiently. He asks them to close their eyes and describe again. Slowly, a more coherent image emerges: dark clothing sleeves, long despite the humidity, something metallic in hand, moving with purpose. One villager mentions hearing footsteps echo on the wooden planks of the bridge before the scream. That detail stops Min cold. He was there. He heard the scream, but he remembers no footsteps other than his sister's and his own. Could he have missed it? Could the rain have drowned it out? An unusual detail emerges from one old man, a retired guard. He swears the stranger wore shoes, with a hard sole city shoes, he calls them. Most villagers wear sandals or go barefoot in the fields. A hard sole clicking on the wood would sound out of place. Ishmael. The police follow this lead, checking nearby towns for visitors, construction workers, traders. They look for anyone matching the vague description. But the paperwork swells, the suspects multiply, and soon the mysterious man is less a person and more a shadow stretched thin over too many theories. Still, Min clings to him, because if there was a man, then maybe Lon didn't fall by accident. Maybe she was taken.
This theory reignites tension in the village.
Some whisper about traffickers, outsiders who prey on young women. Others fear something darker: a killer who blends into crowds, waiting for moments when the rain hides his approach. For Lan's parents, it is unbearable. The thought of her drowning is painful, but the thought of her being dragged away by human hands is worse. It means she may have suffered, it means she may still be suffering. They argue late into the night, torn between despair and the faint, cruel hope that if she was taken, she might still be alive. Min dreams again. This time, land does not point upriver. She stands behind a man in silhouette, her face pale, her hand lifted as though to wave. He cannot see the man's face. He wakes with sweat on his neck and the imprint of her voice echoing, "Don't forget me." Dreams are not evidence, yet sometimes they plant seeds that investigations cannot. Here's another unusual fact. In 1979, a missing child's case in West Germany gained traction when multiple townspeople reported dreaming about the same man near the woods. The police followed those leads, and though the dreams were coincidence, they helped uncover an actual suspect living nearby. Dreams can be noise, but they can also stir action. Min takes his own seriously. Driven, he retraces the night. He walks the same path with a lantern, listening for footsteps, watching the shadows. He imagines the man trailing them, standing still in the rain until the moment came. It is unbearable to think his sister's last moments were shared with someone lurking just beyond his vision. The case file thickens with rumors. Some villagers recall seeing lantern light flickering near the bridge that week, as if someone was watching from afar.
Others swear the man was searching for something, not someone. The metallic object becomes the focus. Was it a flashlight, a weapon, a tool? Investigators and detectives are still debating whether this detail is critical or a projection of fear, but for Min, it is the hook he cannot let go. Late one evening, he finds himself at the small riverside market. He notices a traveling trader selling flashlights, knives, and odd tools. When Min asks about the night of the disappearance, the trader smiles too easily and says he was nowhere near the bridge. Min's stomach knots, but there is nothing concrete to hold him. Still, he begins to wonder, is the mysterious man not a ghost at all, but flesh and blood passing through unnoticed, carrying answers in his pockets? The widening river search gave no closure, but this shadow figure reopens everything.
The bridge is no longer just wood and rain, it is a stage where an unknown actor entered and vanished. And if the man was real, Min knows one thing with certainty: he did not vanish into the water. He is still out there somewhere, carrying the truth about what happened that night. A family is a fragile structure. From the outside, it looks unshakable: meals, shared laughter across the courtyard, traditions carried on like clockwork. But when one piece goes missing, when a voice falls silent, when a chair at the table stays empty, the entire structure tilts. Cracks appear in places no one expected. Lon's disappearance was not only a mystery to the police, it was a storm inside her own household. At first, they were united: parents, brother, distant relatives. They gathered around the kitchen table, hands clutched, whispering prayers. They cooked meals no one touched, lit incense that burned down in silence.
Grief in those early nights had a strange solidarity, but grief doesn't stay polite. It mutates. The mother begins with insomnia. She sits awake at the altar, muttering Lan's name under her breath like a mantra. When dawn comes, she is too tired to cook, too weary to smile. Her voice cracks at odd moments, breaking mid-sentence as if a hand squeezes her throat. The father withdraws into silence. He goes to the field's works until his body aches and avoids the house where the air feels too heavy. In the evenings, he smokes by the gate, staring at the road. Sometimes he mutters that if only he'd insisted they take a different path, that night none of this would have happened. Guilt blooms like mold, sticky and suffocating. Min becomes the hinge between them. He tries to comfort his mother, tries to answer his father's unspoken blame, but he carries his own weight. He was there. He was supposed to keep her safe. And in the eyes of the village, suspicion still lingers. Why did he survive? Why didn't he see more? Why didn't he stop it? That unasked question hangs between the parents and their son. They never say it aloud, but Min feels it in their eyes. I've been Here's a historical fact. In the 1950s, when schoolgirl Evelyn Hartley vanished in Wisconsin, her family collapsed under the pressure of suspicion and media scrutiny. Friends reported that her father seemed to age 10 years in a single season, while her mother withdrew entirely from social life. Families under unsolved cases rarely emerge whole. The disappearance becomes a second death, invisible but corrosive. In Lon's home, arguments begin. Small at first, the father insists they should stop feeding rumors. The mother insists they should keep searching.
Then larger, whether to trust the police, whether to follow strange leads, whether to consider the possibility that she is truly gone. Their voices rise, bounce off the thin walls, echo into the night. One evening, Min hears his mother accuse his father of giving up on her too soon. His father, in return, slams the table and shouts that prayers won't bring her back. The sound of the plates shattering is worse than silence. Our The siblings' absence infects rituals. Festivals arrive and pass. The family sets out offerings, but leaves an extra bowl for Lan untouched. Neighbors visit less frequently. Some bring sympathy, others bring gossip. One woman whispers, maybe the brother knows more than he says. Min hears her, and it feels like a knife slid between his ribs. The torment extends into dreams. The mother dreams of Lan sitting outside the window, drenched hair plastered to her face, never stepping inside. The father dreams of walking the bridge alone, hearing footsteps behind him, but never seeing who follows. Min dreams of holding her hand, only for her to slip away again. They rarely share these dreams, but each carries them like hidden bruises. Mater. An unusual detail: the family's dog, once loyal and loud, stops barking at night. Instead, it whines and paws at the door, as if sensing something beyond the threshold. Some nights, it refuses to enter the courtyard at all. The villagers take this as a sign dogs, they say, can sense restless spirits. The mother listens, trembling. The father scoffs, though his hands shake when he lights another cigarette. Investigators and detectives are still debating whether such family breakdowns harm or help cases. On one hand, grief sharpens memory. On the other, it bends it. A parent's desperation might recall a detail the police overlooked, or it might create an illusion, a desperate fabrication. In Land's case, the family's division begins to mirror the wider community. One half clings to rational explanations, the other to shadows and omens. Min, caught in the middle, feels himself fracturing. He avoids both parents, spending longer nights by the bridge, sketching maps of currents, notes of witness statements. The house feels haunted, not by Lan, but by tension. He sometimes imagines that if he could solve the case, if he could bring her back in any form alive or at rest, his family might heal. But every day without answers is another splinter driven deeper. One night, he finds his mother talking to the empty chair at the table. She whispers as if Lan is sitting there describing her day, asking if she ate.
Min cannot bear it. He flees outside only to find his father sitting at the gate, muttering that it's better to stop hoping. Hope and despair pull in opposite directions, and Min feels himself tearing in two.
Here's another historical fact. In 1976, when 12-year-old Morgan Nick was abducted in Arkansas, her parents spent decades in conflict, one consumed by tireless searching, the other overwhelmed by exhaustion. Many missing person families later reported that the case didn't just take their child, It took their marriage, their unity, their sense of safety. Lan's case drags her family toward the same precipice.
The villagers notice. Some pity them, others whisper about curses. The once proud household begins to shrink in stature. Invitations to weddings, festivals, even market gatherings stop coming. They're marked not just as grieving, but as cursed. For men, this isolation is salt on the wound. Without his sister, without his parents' trust, and without the village's comfort, he becomes an island adrift. Yet within the torment, there are fleeting moments of connection. Sometimes, when the mother collapses in tears, the father will place a rough hand on her shoulder. Sometimes, when Min stumbles in exhausted, the father leaves a bowl of rice by his door without a word. These tiny gestures are the threads preventing complete collapse, but threads can snap. The case's lack of progress grinds them down. Every new rumor about the mysterious man divides opinion further. The father insists it is nonsense. The mother insists it is fate. Min sways between them, caught between rational investigation and the echo of dreams. The torment doesn't just live in the house, it is the house.
The walls carry it, the furniture breathes it, even the air feels poisoned by it. Each day without Lon is another day the family edges closer to breaking. And in the middle of it all, Min wonders if he had vanished. Instead, would they be stronger, or would the torment still devour them just the same? The river doesn't speak in words, it speaks in fragments driftwood reeds, silt bottles, and sometimes the pieces of people's lives. For weeks, the current had given nothing but silence, but rivers don't keep their secrets forever. It happens early one morning. A fisherman named Bao rises before dawn, as he always does. He steers his small wooden boat into the mist, the world hushed, but for the soft slap of his oar against the water. He casts his net weights, pulls, and feels an unusual weight. Not fish, not driftwood, something heavier. When he hauls the net aboard, his breath catches.
Tangled among reeds and mud is a leather satchel, swollen from water but still intact. The clasp is rusted, the surface worn, but it is unmistakably human. Bao hesitates. Some fishermen would throw such things back, fearing bad luck. But curiosity wins. He carries it ashore and delivers it straight to the village police outpost. Osifman. The satchel is dried, pried open carefully. Inside are soggy notebooks, a cracked mirror, and a bracelet familiar to men, painfully so. It belonged to Lon. The air in the station grows heavy. The bracelet is simple silver with tiny etchings of flowers. Lan wore it nearly every day. Min remembers teasing her about it, once calling it too childish. Now it gleams in his hand like an anchor. Here's a historical fact. In 1991, when river dredgers worked along the Danube in Austria, they pulled up a handbag belonging to a woman missing for 3 years. Though the contents were ruined, the personal item shifted the case from rumor to fact, proving she had indeed reached the water. In Land's case, the satchel works the same way. Suddenly, theories become more than shadows.
The police seize on it. They note the mud packed into the seams, the reeds lodged inside. The satchel must have traveled, but from where upstream, downstream? Had it fallen directly from the bridge or been carried by someone before ending in the water? Investigators and detectives are still debating whether items found downstream can be trusted as indicators of location. Some argue the currents scatter objects randomly, others insist there are patterns to follow. For the family, the discovery is both relief and torment. Relief because finally there's proof Lan was there on that bridge near that water.
Torment because the satchel is only a fragment. It does not explain what happened to her. The mother clutches the bracelet, pressing it to her forehead as though it could restore warmth. The father says little, only nods stiffly when the police confirm it will be cataloged as evidence. Min feels the edges of the bracelet cut into his palm as he grips it too tightly. The unusual detail comes when one officer unfolds a waterlogged page from the notebook inside. The ink is smeared, the letters blurred, but a phrase is legible: someone follows. Two words distorted, but undeniable. The station falls silent. If Lan wrote those words before she vanished, it changes everything. Min tremble as he reads it again and again. He remembers her friend's testimony that Lan once asked if she ever felt followed. Now here is the written echo of that fear, but questions erupt. When did she write it? Days before the disappearance hours? Was it part of a longer sentence, now lost to water? Could it be unrelated altogether? Investigators and detectives are still debating whether such partial notes should be treated as clues or accidents of smudged ink. Some experts warn against confirmation bias, seeing meaning where there is none. Others argue that fragments often hold the sharpest truths. Nai, yom, morn, norm. The village reacts like wildfire. News of the satchel spreads fast. People crowd to see Whisper speculate. Some say it proves she was taken by the river. Others insist it proves she was stalked by the mysterious man. The bridge, already heavy with rumors, becomes unbearable. Some villagers refuse to cross it at night, claiming the satchel's discovery has awakened Lan's spirit. Min, however, sees it differently. He studies the satchel's stains, the mud clinging to its leather. He asks Bao, the fisherman, to take him to the exact spot where it was found. They row together, drifting along the misty bends of the river. Bao points to a cluster of reeds where the satchel had snagged. Min leans over the side, staring into the murky water as though expecting to see her reflection. He feels both closer and further away than ever. Nazen for nar merkror amorn azim. Here's another unusual fact. In 2003, archaeologists dredging the Thames uncovered a 16th century child's shoe with a pebble inside, believed to be a protective charm. Rivers don't just keep evidence, they keep symbols. For Min, the bracelet feels the same way. Not just an object, but a message, a reminder of who she was. Mani nadarm na. The police, invigorated by the find, organize a targeted search of the river around that area. Divers comb the depths, sonar scans the mud nets drag along the bottom, but days pass and nothing else surfaces.
The satchel remains alone, a solitary survivor of whatever took place. For the family, it is salt in the wound. They crave a body, a clear end, something to bury. Instead, they are left with a bracelet and blurred ink, heavy with implication, but empty of closure. At night, Min sits with the notebook page under lamplight, magnifying glass in hand. He stares until his eyes blur, trying to coax more words from the paper. Someone follows. That's all it gives him. That's all it will ever give him. But sometimes he swears he sees the letters move, forming other words. He follows. She follows. They follow. His exhaustion plays tricks on him. Or maybe the river still has more to say. The satchel shifts the investigation's momentum. The river is no longer silent. It has spoken once. Everyone waits for it to speak again. But rivers are not generous storytellers. They choose their moments.
And as the days pass with no further clues, the bracelet grows heavier in Min's pocket, as if it carries not only his sister's memory, but the burden of unanswered questions. One thing becomes certain: Lon left behind traces, but not enough. The satchel is not an ending, it is an invitation to dig deeper, to ask why she wrote those words and who she feared was following her. For men, it is no longer about the river alone. It is about the shadow beside it, the one who may have walked the bridge with them that night, the one the satchel seems to point toward without ever naming. Sometimes, to find truth, investigators have to return to the scene and replay it, all the steps, the sounds, the timing. They call it a reconstruction, but to the family, it feels like reopening the wound. The police choose a moonless night damp with mist. Lanterns line the dirt road leading to the bridge. Officers position themselves at key points, notepads ready, while villagers gather at a distance, whispering as though they're about to watch a play. The bridge creaks under the weight of so many eyes. Min stands at the edge, palms clammy, the bracelet heavy in his pocket. He has agreed to participate, though every muscle in his body resists. To walk again where Lon vanished feels cruel, almost sacrilegious, yet he knows it is necessary.
Here's a historical fact in the case of the Beaumont children. In 1966, Australia police conducted multiple reconstructions on Glenelg Beach, hoping to trigger new witness memories. Though the case remains unsolved, such methods have become a cornerstone of missing person investigations worldwide. Lon's case now joins that tradition. The reconstruction begins with simple steps. Min and a female officer of similar build to Lon walk across the bridge together. The planks echo underfoot. Observers note the sound, the rhythm, the visibility from various angles. Then they introduce variables, rainfall simulated with buckets poured through a sieve lanterns, dimmed to mimic stormy night conditions. The officers measure visibility. How far ahead could someone see? Could shadows hide a figure standing still? The answers are chilling. Beyond a few meters, the night swallows everything. Min feels the deja vu sink into his bones, the drizzle on his face, the slippery boards, the uneven hum of footsteps. He imagines her hand in his again, only to remember how suddenly it had slipped away. The female officer lets out a rehearsed scream. It slices the night air. The villagers shudder. Even the dog tied at the outpost begins to howl. The sound is tested from multiple distances at the far end of the bridge near the fields by the riverbank.
In some positions, the scream is sharp and clear, in others, muffled, nearly lost to the rain and wind. This raises a debate among the investigators. Could someone have heard Lan's cry and ignored it, or did no one truly hear it at all? An unusual detail surfaces during the reconstruction. When officers walk with hard-soled shoes, the echo is sharp, distinct, almost metallic. When they switch to sandals or bare feet, the sound nearly disappears. Suddenly, the witness accounts about city shoes seem more credible. Min grips the railing, his knuckles pale. He remembers nothing of such footsteps that night, but the demonstration proves they could have been there, masked by rain and his own focus on Lan. Mine. Next, the officers test the possibility of a fall. They pour buckets of water onto the planks, slicking the surface. A mannequin of similar weight is tipped toward the edge.
It slips, crashes into the water with a violent splash. The sound carries far, startling even those at the far bank. But when repeated timing the mannequins fall to coincide with a staged scream, the overlap muddles perception. Some listeners swear they only heard one sound, not two. The conclusion on a rainy night memory of sounds can blend, distort, or vanish. Investigators and detectives are still debating whether Land's disappearance was a slip amplified by poor conditions or if the scream signaled something more deliberate. The most haunting moment comes when Min is asked to close his eyes and retrace his movements. He walks counting steps, recalling where she laughed, where she slowed down. The air grows so tense that even the police fall silent. He stops halfway, points to the railing. Here, he whispers, she was here. The lanterns flicker. The water below reflects broken shards of light.
For a heartbeat, everyone imagines the figure of a girl leaning too far or a hand pulling her down. Here's another historical fact. In the 1980s, Japanese police reconstructed the Futaba Town Bridge incident, where a young woman was thought to have jumped or been pushed. By testing angles, visibility, and sound, they concluded it was nearly impossible for her to have fallen without external force. The debate still continues in criminology circles. Land's case feels eerily parallel. During the reconstruction, something else unnerving happens. A villager positioned at the far bank swears he saw a shadow move beyond the lantern light. Yet no officer was assigned there. The claim sparks murmurs of ghosts, or perhaps of someone watching even now. The police dismiss it as nerves, but Min notes it with a shiver. The reconstruction ends near midnight. Officers record data, thank participants, dismiss villagers, but the air does not lighten. If anything, the bridge feels heavier, now layered with the sound of staged screams and splashes. The villagers disperse quickly, unwilling to linger. For Min, the experience stirs more questions than answers. Yes, she could have slipped. Yes, someone could have been there unnoticed. Yes, the scream could have been misheard. The reconstruction confirms everything and nothing at once. Moral: an unusual discovery comes as the team packs up. One officer, leaning against the railing, notices deep grooves carved into the wood. They look old, weathered, but deliberate parallel lines, as if something sharp scraped repeatedly. No one remembers them being there before. Were they natural wear? Or did someone carve them as a signal, a tally, a warning? The grooves are photographed but left unexplained.
Back home, Min cannot sleep. The echo of the staged scream rattles in his skull. He thinks of the grooves of the missing footsteps, of the blurred phrase in the notebook someone follows. The reconstruction may have been designed to settle debate, but for him, it has only sharpened the dread. If the bridge is a stage, then the play isn't finished. The missing actor, the mysterious man, still hasn't stepped forward.
And yet, even through the uncertainty, the reconstruction shifts something important. It forces the investigators to admit that Lan's disappearance cannot be closed neatly as an accident. There are too many variables, too many shadows. For the first time, the police write the words in their file: suspicious circumstances. The bridge sighs in the wind, its wooden planks creaking like tired bones. For Min, it feels less like an explanation and more like a promise. The truth is still out there waiting. The human mind craves resolution. Unsolved mysteries gnaw at us, circling our thoughts like restless moths around a lantern. After weeks of whispered rumors and sleepless nights, the investigation into Len's disappearance sharpens. The bridge has given its testimony, planks creaking echoes, confusing shadows misleading, but now the river itself is about to speak. Early one morning, a call comes from downstream. Fishermen hauling their nets by the Oxbow Bend find something tangled deep in the reeds, not a body, but a bundle of cloth, heavy with mud. The officers rush to the site, men trailing behind, though officially told to stay away. The cloth turns out to be a dress torn, waterlogged, unmistakably lands. The floral pattern still clings faintly beneath the stains.
Beside it, woven into the netting lies a broken plank, splintered at one end edges, raw and fresh compared to the rest of the weathered wood. The combination electrifies the investigation. If the plank broke loose that night, it could explain everything. The slick boards, the sudden scream, the fall into the torrent. Historical fact check. Here in 1967, during the Silver Bridge collapse in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, investigators traced the disaster back to a single failed eye bar link. That one fracture cascaded into catastrophe. Engineers still cite it as proof that one small weakness can bring down a structure or a life. In Land's case, the plank becomes that weakness. Nazar ni the police dispatch carpenters to inspect the bridge. Sure enough, near the midpoint, a gap yawns where the board should have been. The nails around it are rusted thin, eaten alive by years of moisture. The plank had been barely hanging on. During the reconstruction, they had walked across without noticing the missing piece because rainwater had darkened the space, disguising it as shadow. But now, under daylight, the truth glares obvious. Min's knees weaken at the sight. He remembers her stepping there. He remembers reaching for her hand. He remembers the sound. The scream was real. The splash was real. And all this time, he had doubted himself, doubted her doubted reality. Yet, as clear as it seems, the discovery doesn't tie every knot. Why had no one noticed the missing board during the initial search? Why had it taken weeks and a fisherman's net to bring it to light? And what of the witness who swore he saw a man with city shoes? Was he mistaken, confused by rain and shadows, or had someone truly been lurking only to vanish when the bridge claimed? Her investigators and detectives are still debating whether Land's fall was purely accidental or if human presence played a role either by chance or by choice. Sort. An unusual detail arises when examining the broken plank. On one side, faint scratches run diagonal, almost claw like, not made by water, not by rust. The marks could be fingernails, desperate scrapes from someone clinging. Min cannot look at them without trembling. He imagines her holding on, fighting, calling his name while he stood helpless in the rain. He imagines her strength giving out the river, swallowing her scream. Ji Hera. The official report leans toward structural failure. The bridge in disrepair caused Land to slip and fall. The town council issues a public apology, promises immediate repairs, and posts warning signs. The file is stamped with resolution. But closure feels hollow. For Min, the revelation is double edged. It clears him of suspicion, no more side glances from villagers, no more whispers about jealousy or hidden rage. But it also leaves him with guilt heavier than chains. If he had held her hand tighter, if he had pulled her back, if he had noticed the warped plank earlier, she might still be alive. That night, Min sits by the riverbank where the fisherman found her dress. He places the bracelet beside him, watching moonlight shimmer across the current. The water looks deceptively calm, as though it hides its appetite. He speaks softly, not sure if he's addressing the river, his sister, or himself. I found you, he whispers. I found the truth, but it doesn't bring you back. The wind stirs, carrying the scent of wet reeds. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls. For the first time since that night, Min allows himself to cry openly, shoulders shaking until exhaustion quiets him. Werner.
Here's another historical fact. During the 1959 Malpasse Dam disaster in France, survivors reported that the flood sounded like a scream from the earth itself. Psychologists studying trauma later noted how often memory and sound blur in catastrophe. Land's scream real or half remembered has become Min's personal flood reshaping every thought. Back in the village, the finding divides opinion. Some accept it readily, a tragic accident, nothing more. Others cling to darker theories. The man with city shoes, the scratches, the mysterious grooves on the railing. They argue that even if the plank broke, perhaps someone had loosened it first. The debate grows academic, almost ritualistic. Each evening, elders gather in the tea shop sketching theories in spilled sugar. Was she pushed? Did she slip? Did the bridge itself hunger for another soul? The case may be solved on paper, but in the hearts of those who witnessed it, it remains unresolved. For Min, the truth is not a single answer, but layers. Yes, the bridge failed. Yes, he failed to protect her. Yes, there may have been shadows that night. The truth is not one revelation, but a knot he will untangle for the rest of his life. The following days, carpenters replaced the broken planks. Fresh wood gleams pale against the older boards, too clean, too new, almost obscene in its brightness. As hammers echo across the river valley, Min realizes the bridge will soon erase all evidence of what happened. The grooves, the scratches, the gap, all gone. He takes one last walk across before the work is finished. Pausing at the midpoint, he leans on the railing, stares down into the churning black. Goodbye, he says, though, whether to Lan or to the bridge, he doesn't know. The river swallows the word, leaving no echo. Closure in the end is not about finding answers. It is about deciding which questions you can live with. For Min, the truth revealed is a fragile plank itself, enough to walk on but always creaking under his weight. The official explanation circulates quickly. Structural failure, tragic accident, no foul play confirmed. Newspapers run short articles framing it as an unfortunate reminder of aging infrastructure. The bridge becomes a symbol not of mystery, but of negligence. For the police, it means one less open case. For the council, it means budget allocations and political damage. For the villagers, it means gossip, fading into memory. But for the family, it means something else entirely. When Min's parents receive the report, they read it in silence. His mother's hands shake so violently that the paper crinkles. His father stares at the words without blinking, his lips pressed tight as though refusing to let grief escape. The truth they begged for has arrived, but it feels like a thief delivering ashes. Later that night, Min overhears his parents arguing. His father insists it was an accident, that they must let her rest. His mother counters, voice breaking, that a mother knows that someone else was involved, that her daughter would not simply fall. The rift grows thin cracks, splintering their already fragile foundation. Here's a historical fact. Families of the 1912 Titanic victims experienced similar fractures.
Some clung to official explanations of iceberg impact, while others pursued theories of negligence or conspiracy. Psychologists note that grief rarely unites, it often divides each person, needing a different truth to survive. Min finds himself trapped between his parents' versions. To his father, he must be strong, practical, the son who carries the family forward. To his mother, he must listen, not share her suspicion of hidden hands. In both roles, he hides his own guilt that he had been there holding Lan's hand and let her slip away. The tragedy is not just Lan's death, but the way it echoes into every relationship, corroding what remains. The village organizes a memorial. Lanterns float along the river candles, trembling inside paper shells shaped like lotus flowers. Each flame drifts into darkness, swallowed one by one. Min releases his lantern last. He watches it spin slowly, catching on reeds, then breaking free again. He whispers her name. Strangely, in that moment, he feels lighter, not healed, but less suffocated. It is as if naming her aloud in front of witnesses restores her presence, however briefly. An unusual detail occurs during the ceremony. One lantern, bright red instead of white, floats upstream instead of down. Villagers murmur in surprise. Some laugh nervously, chalking it up to tricky currents. Others whisper of spirits resisting farewell. For men, the sight plants a strange comfort, the idea that maybe Lan refuses to be carried away. Maybe she lingers watching, unwilling to vanish completely. The following week, carpenters finish repairs on the bridge. The new planks look almost arrogant in their cleanliness. Officials take photographs, shake hands, declare it safe again. Life, they imply, must continue. But when Min walks across the finished bridge, it feels like a betrayal. Every board erases evidence of her struggle. Every nail silences her scream. He leans over the railing, stares at the rushing water, and wonders if the bridge is now less a passage than a gravestone. Historical fact. In 1940, Washington's Tacoma Narrows Bridge collapsed spectacularly due to wind resonance, earning the nickname Galloping Gertie. After it was rebuilt, locals avoided the new bridge for years, haunted not by danger, but by memory. Min senses the same fate for this bridge. It is safe, perhaps safer than ever, but to him it is poisoned by history.
The tragedy does not end with Lan's absence. Min notices how the village treats him differently now. Some offer pity too generous to bear pressing food into his hands, speaking with hushed tones. Others avoid his eyes as though misfortune might be contagious.
Worst are those who still whisper about city shoes, convinced a stranger walks among them guilty but free. He cannot escape the bridge. It stretches across every conversation, every silence. At home, nights are the hardest. His mother still sets an extra bowl at dinner, silent ritual refusing erasure. His father works later, lingering in the fields to avoid the table. Min lies awake, staring at the ceiling, hearing phantom footsteps on the planks. Sometimes he dreams of her voice calling. Sometimes he dreams of nothing and wakes ashamed that even in sleep he loses her. Investigators and detectives are still debating whether families benefit from receiving partial closure. Some argue that even incomplete answers allow healing. Others claim partial truths prolong pain, leaving survivors circling possibilities endlessly. Min feels like living proof of the second argument.
Closure is not a door, gently shutting. It is a door half open, squeaking in the wind, never still. One evening, while sorting through Lan's belongings, Min finds her old school notebook. Inside are doodles, small stars, crooked hearts, notes to herself. On one page, she had scribbled, "Bridges are promises. You always get to the other side." The words hit him like a stone. He clutches the page, realizing her promise was broken, not by choice, but by chance. The bridge betrayed her, and yet, in another way, her note is right because she did reach the other side, just not the one they expected. Ma. The tragedy's final cruelty. is how ordinary the world becomes afterward. Birds still sing market stalls, still open rain, still falls on rooftops. People laugh, argue, marry, have children. The universe does not pause for grief. Men walks through these ordinary days like a ghost, half present, half gone.
But slowly against his will, small fragments of life seep back in. A neighbor's child smiles at him. A stray cat follows him home. His mother laughs once unexpectedly at a memory. The weight never leaves, but it shifts like carrying a stone, not in his pocket, but in his palm, always there yet possible to move forward. And so resolution and tragedy intertwine. Lan's death is explained but not solved. The family is freed from suspicion but not from pain. The bridge is repaired but never trusted. The truth is revealed but never satisfying. Resolution gives shape to tragedy. Tragedy gives weight to resolution. Min learns that survival is not about finding peace, it is about learning to live with the noise of unfinished questions, to keep walking even when the bridge creaks underfoot. Time does not erase it, only layers. Days stack upon days, seasons upon seasons, until memory is pressed thin like old paper.
Yet beneath those layers, certain sounds linger: the creak of wood, the slap of water, the echo of a voice calling out in the dark. For men, the bridge is no longer just timber and nails. It is a living presence, a place where memory and loss intertwine. He crosses it less often now, choosing the long road around the river whenever he can. But sometimes necessity drives him back across, and each step becomes a conversation with the past. The villagers, too, have changed their relationship with the bridge. Children dare each other to run across at night, whispering about the sister ghost who haunts the midpoint. Couples leave flowers at the railing, believing she blesses or curses lovers depending on her mood. Elderly women walking to market at dawn mutter prayers as they cross, warding off the possibility of another tragedy. An unusual detail emerges over time: the grooves carved into the railing. First noticed during reconstruction remain. The new planks are smooth, but the grooves resist erasure, as if the bridge itself refuses to let them go. Some say they lengthen, deepen, though no hand is ever seen carving. For Here's a historical fact in Prague. The Charles Bridge holds centuries of legends. Locals claim that certain stones remember battles, floods, even prayers, that history imprints itself into matter. Scientists debate this idea, but folklorists embrace it. Bridges, they argue, are not just structures, but storytellers. Perhaps Land's Bridge has learned the same role. Years pass. Min grows older, his face weathered, his hands calloused from work. Yet he still keeps her bracelet, the metal cool against his skin. He wears it on certain days, not as decoration, but as anchor.
In quiet moments, he finds himself speaking aloud to her as though she might answer through wind or water. "Do you see me?" he asks once, leaning over the railing at dusk. "Do you forgive me?" The river murmurs below, neither cruel nor kind, only endless. Investigators and detectives are still debating whether places can truly hold energy, whether trauma imprints itself so deeply that it changes the very air. Psychologists call it environmental memory. Spiritualists call it haunting. Min calls it life, because every time he steps on the bridge, he feels her beside him, not as ghost, but as echo. Life in the village continues. Babies are born, crops fail, festivals return. The bridge becomes background again, not headline, but to those who remember it, hums with silence. No one can cross without glancing at the midpoint, the place where a girl once screamed. At night, When lanterns swing in the wind, villagers sometimes swear they hear footsteps following them always, two steps behind, never catching up. Some hurry forward, clutching their bags. Others slow down, whispering "Good night, Lan," as though addressing a neighbor. The mystery once painful shifts into ritual. The bridge belongs not only to Min's grief, but to the village's folklore. Min learns to live with it. He plants trees near the riverbank, teaches neighbor children how to fish, helps repair houses after storms. He never stops missing her, but the missing becomes less sharp, more woven into who he is. Like a scar, sensitive in cold weather, but proof of survival. On anniversaries, he lights a lantern and sets it on the water. He watches it drift as always, waiting for one to float upstream instead of down. It happens only once more, years later, and he takes it as her answer, not gone just elsewhere.
Jarcisia. Here's another historical fact. In 2018, divers in the Thames recovered a medieval pilgrim badge shaped like a bridge proof that travelers once believed crossing safely required blessing. To cross is always to risk, to place trust in woodstone or fate. Min understands this now. Every crossing is a prayer, every step a promise. In the end, the bridge stands firm, stronger than before, its planks thick, its nails new. But for Min, it will never be safe, not because of danger, but because of memory. Every creak is her voice, every gust of wind is her breath, every shadow is the space she left behind. The echoes never fade, and maybe they shouldn't, because memory, however heavy, is also love refusing to die. So we end tonight, not with answers neatly tied, but with echoes like footsteps fading on wood, like water carrying away a name. Land's disappearance, once a wound, has become part of the bridge itself, part of her brother's life, part of the village's whispered prayers. Bridges are strange things, aren't they? They promise safety, a way across a certainty of arrival. Yet sometimes, one rotten plank changes everything. One creak, one slip, and the promise collapses into silence. Perhaps that is why bridges feel haunted across the world, because they hold the weight of every crossing, every risk, every soul who trusted them. For Min, the bridge will always be both the place that took his sister and the place that keeps her alive. The grooves carved in wood, the lanterns drifting at dusk, the whispers of children daring each other, all of it ensures she is not forgotten. And maybe that is the true resolution, not the police report, not the carpenter's repairs, but the persistence of memory echoing through every step. So as you settle now, let the image blur. Picture the river at night, soft mist, rising lanterns, gliding downstream. Imagine one drifting against the current red flame, glowing stubbornly, as though someone refuses to say goodbye. Rest in that thought, rest in that echo, because sometimes the only way to carry tragedy is to let it walk beside you like a sibling's voice just out of reach, forever crossing the bridge.